He is from the Multnomah Education Service District, and he joined them in September 2022 as a systems and security engineer. He's had an interest in cybersecurity since he was a teen, and he has since worked in educational and nonprofit institutions in a variety of positions spanning IT support, systems administration, and cybersecurity. Our second speaker is Mike Potter. He's from the Northwest Regional Education Service District. He joined them as an IT security analyst in September of 2021, and he's worked in the nonprofit sector for community banks and with several educational organizations as an IT engineer and administrator since 2000. Over the years, he's focused on information security, presenting at conferences, and obtaining the CISSP certification in 2016. So we'd like to welcome them both. Just a quick note, both the Multnomah Education Service District and the Northwest Regional Education Service District combined create the Cascade Technology Alliance, and that's who they're here representing.
Thank you so much for coming down here after listening to the FBI. I hated to leave early before to get everything set up, but we'll try to keep things going. And it's great to hear how they are a key part of information security for all of our sectors, whether in education or otherwise. And the title of this talk is Coordination and Cooperation, K12 Information Security. We chose information security rather than cybersecurity because we try to focus not just on what's running on a particular network or computer, but a more broad look at all the types of information security that impact our schools. The introductions were awesome, but just to show you that I do have a face with a beard that's strangely more gray now than it used to be. Myself, I'm Mike Potter, Hasanawi. And our third team member, Jacob Baxter, who is here and in the picture, even though he's not presenting, because we work as a team. Anyway, we are honored to present today at the Urban Memorial Union, a famous location in academia. I was very excited to hear that we would be here because, of course, this is the location of the infamous Animal House Food Fund. Now, I hear that we made it through our lunch without anything flying through the air, so I think we're doing quite well as cybersecurity professionals compared to fraternity members. So, coordination and cooperation. What cybersecurity threats do K-12 organizations face? That's kind of, we figured where to start. Where do we start? The answer is kind of simple. All of them. Whether it's malware, ransomware, email compromise, phishing, data leaks, malvertising, third-party provider risk, denial of service attacks, insider adversaries, software that we don't know what libraries it's running, whatever you can think of, whatever works you've seen, these are the things that we face on a pretty much daily basis. A few statistics there just to kind of illustrate what we're talking about. Checkpoint in 2022, in their mid-year report, they showed a 44% increase on cyber attacks on K-12 organizations since 2021. So just that 1 year period. And since then, that trend has continued. Ransomware groups like Akira that claimed Edmonds, Washington School District as a victim, they were just one of 11 school districts attacked by ransomware gangs in August alone. That's not for the whole year, that's 1 month. Disruptive attacks like distributed denial of service attacks or service abuse like Zoom bombing that you may have heard about during the early pandemic years. They interrupt K-12 instruction even more severely today than they did 3 years ago, 5 years ago, or 10 years ago because our use of digital tools has greatly increased, certainly during the remote learning period, but even since going back into the classroom. And I should say, schools receive the same automated scans and attacks, junk email that spreads across the internet to any IP address, any mailbox. Steve Gibson calls it the internet's background radiation. So just like any organization, we constantly are scanned and getting pinged and getting these kinds of attacks. However, cyber attackers specifically target K-12 institutions. We're a particular favorite of theirs. Now, why would that be? Well, we have more to protect, and it's harder to defend. K12 IT supports an open collaborative environment with limited resources to support it. And yet we have sensitive information, personally identifiable information, and sensitive people to protect. Students that are under the age of 18 and also students that are under the age of 13, where the COPPA laws have website providers refusing to create accounts for children under 13. Their kids kind of go past that and create them anyway if they can. One quote here is that I put for Information Security Magazine. In fact, while most companies only have employees, academic institutions don't just have teachers. We also have students, making our networks in the sector much bigger, more open, and more difficult to protect. We also, as learning institutions, we have students who are learning, who are in the process of learning how to use technology responsibly and about the very concept of privacy. So as they're trying to figure out how to use these digital tools in a good way and to not overshare personal information, they're learning that they have access to tools and services that can cause way more disruption than just someone going out and pulling a firearm. Cyberbullying is one example where in the past, bullying might only happen face-to-face or by rumor. Now that goes with everyone in their pocket. It follows them home. It doesn't ever let up. So these tools are very valuable in terms of education, but they also can be used in more harmful ways than were possible in the past. Another reason goes back to a bank robber from the 19th century, Willie Sutton. At one point, this is somewhat anecdotal, maybe not 100% true, someone asked Willie, well, why do you rob so many banks? He said, well, it's simple. That's where the money is. Well, why attack K12 systems and resources? Because identity thieves, credit thieves, they want student information specifically, and K12 is where that information is. Personally identifiable information from school employees, district families, past students, current students, are all throughout our systems. That's the record, those are the records we have. Students whose information is stolen and used for credit fraud often don't find out until they're applying for financial aid for college. Well, if if that particular student's information was seized, say when they were age 5, that's about 10 to 15 years where that information can be used as a perfectly clean credit report, and they will never know until they actually have to, hey, I need student loans to be able to go to school. There's a third factor as well, that many schools do have cyber security insurance policies. And they also have a great desire to protect the students that they have. So they're essentially incentivized, or perhaps it's more fair to say vulnerable, to extortion attempts through ransomware. So criminals know this, unfortunately, and because it works once, they will try the same tactic again. You get paid from one school district that wants to prevent the release of sensitive information. Unfortunately, it sets up a pattern. Well, it's not kind of a bleak look there. Everyone's attacking us. We have all this sensitive information. We don't have a lot to, what can we do to face all these challenges? Resources that are available for information security vary greatly by district, but the needs that they address are often the same. It comes down to something fairly simple. How many people are in a district? How many devices do they have to protect? And we have some districts in our ESD that only have, say, 200 or 500 students, teachers, and their devices. But these face exactly the same cyber threats as districts that are 1,000 times larger, say like Los Angeles School District. Except that the small districts, they don't have too much of a budget, and they don't have many or perhaps any local technology people on staff to address these problems. There's also the factor of a shift, what I've termed a shifting cost landscape when it comes to security tools and services. Enhanced security features, things like conditional access policies for Microsoft Azure, or access to more fully fleshed out logs from Microsoft or Google. these aren't available with their free accounts. You have to pay, and sometimes you may already be paying, but you have to pay even more to get access to, say, the full security logs to even be able to detect some of these accounts. And frankly, if you're not a large district, this is not in your budget. You can't afford what Microsoft and Google are offering at that paid level. And just as an example, multi-factor authentication is something that could be a huge project, or it could be an easy lift, depending on the size of the district. It could be something that's going to cost them a huge amount of their budget because they weren't paying for it before, or it could be something that's included because they already have, say, the Microsoft A3 or A5 licensing that enables conditional access policy. The problem is, no matter how much it costs or what resources are available, cybersecurity insurance and best practice require them to deploy it all the same. I should mention that there's also the factor of brain drain, if you will, for public sector IT jobs generally, especially as it relates to cybersecurity. So for any cybersecurity students in the room, we'll put a plug in for considering working in the public sector, in the K12 education sector, that we need your help, we want your help. And we offer, this is from my boss, we offer great work-life balance. So it may not be the highest salaries everywhere, but we also have some sort of side benefits, and also the good feeling that you're fighting a good fight on behalf of students and our community. So just a little plug there for future career paths. Where do Oregon's education service districts specifically fit into this big max? I quoted the Oregon statute here which defines the mission of our ESDs to assist school districts and the Department of Education in achieving Oregon's educational goals by providing equitable, high-quality, cost-effective, and locally responsive educational services at a regional level. One of the listed core functions after that is specifically technology support. So that's why the ESDs that we work for specifically are working in this area on behalf of our member school districts. Sometimes that working together can include doing things like buying together in coalition to get a better price. Sometimes that can even include pre-negotiated privacy policies for K12 accounts, which is a real benefit. The Cascade Technology Alliance, which includes technology professionals from both the Northwest Regional and Multnomah County ESDs, we started a pilot project in 2022 to share information security resources that we had with our member school districts. And this presentation is largely that story from that pilot project to a cybersecurity journey. Well, what do we do? What we started was something we just call IT security assessment. Our member school districts can request this assessment from the CTA. This is not a mandatory, forced thing. This is something that we do as a voluntary program to work together. We meet with district technology staff to review the process of the assessment, schedule when we can conduct the review, and by necessity, the scans that we use are designed not to interrupt normal school technology use, because it wouldn't make things much better if our scans for vulnerabilities actually resulted in kids not being able to use their technology. So that it's something that we try to be very careful about, so we can do scans pretty much any time during the day, during the year, without waiting until when the students aren't there so we don't interfere with something. Knock on wood, so far that's happened. I'm still kind of waiting someday something might go sideways, but so far so good. After these scans, after the evaluation, we create a report of findings, what did we find, and the recommendations in priority order of what should be worked on to address what we found. We want to work with the districts to identify any actions or projects that the CTA and the district could tackle together, so that if the district is, say, lacking staff or experience in a given area, we can help them get over that line and get something resolved and fixed. And as we go forward, future assessment phases will build on what we found the first time through and gradually expand the scope of review to more and more systems. What are we looking for? Well, we use cybersecurity guides from CISA and K12-6. That's a security information exchange specifically for the K12 sector. along with vulnerability scans, to identify critical IT security issues. In other words, finding what needs our attention first. We were very much conscious of not wanting this process to become a gotcha. Like, hey, we found a way to get into your systems and you didn't even know about it. We're not trying to do that. We're trying to find what's most essential to either patch, remediate, or replace so that the overall security posture of the school, of the district, is improved. We don't try to find every security vulnerability because honestly, we do include the full results of our findings so that the districts can see everything that we see, but we don't want to give them so many tasks that they just can't handle it, that they freeze up and are overwhelmed. We want to use this opportunity to get started fixing things and build momentum to do more. As just kind of an example, I won't go through all the details, but this is what the previous school year's K12-6 Cybersecurity Essentials for Schools looked like. And as you can see in this list, probably no one in this room would be surprised by any item on this list. It involves web filtering, multi-factor authentication, and so on. One thing I wanted to highlight, though, is we specifically looked for standards that also align with public cybersecurity standards, such as NIST or the CIS controls. That allows outside auditors, when they see what we've evaluated, to be able to pull it back to something, a framework that they're familiar with. Well, like all good projects, it all was going smoothly until we hit a roadblock. What's the roadblock? Well, CTA, between the two ESDs, has 36 member school districts, each with its own set of servers, systems, networks, configurations, and everything else. Working with technology staff at the district, we were able to get some systems ready for scans, but not every district even had staff available to do the prep work to get things ready for a scan. We also learned that, well, technicians aren't used to dealing with these requirements, and so they needed time to review the documents and review the settings and how to put them in place in their network. All of this creating more delay, more lag time. So we needed to find a way for us to make configuration changes on different district networks more efficiently and quickly, especially if we wanted to make this only the first phase of many phases of evaluation going forward. And that's where my colleague Hassan steps in.
For this segment, I would like everybody to stand up. I'm just kidding. If you haven't gone to the FBI, that's what they did. So we had a roadblock, and our roadblock is 36 districts, all with their different systems, not our systems, to scan. And so we're going into districts all across Oregon, well, the upper half of Oregon, to scan their networks, not our systems again. We're scanning networks that we don't have fully ownership of. So what exactly do we need here? What we chose essentially is what we figured out that we needed is something that's not as intrusive. So we don't, bring down the network while school is happening. Most of the time we do this during school time. A lot of parents and a lot of teachers would not be happy with that. The second thing is we wanted it to be consistent. So we would actually give the each. Excuse me, I'm an engineer. They put me in the back room. They don't put me in front of them. So what we want is consistency, and we want consistency for our own data as well as the data that we would give back to the schools. So we chose to, we did, like Mike was saying, we were trying to get the big line items that's, for schools, for vulnerabilities. We're not trying to take every little thing. We just don't want schools to have malware or ransomware and deal with that. So we chose two agentless vulnerability scans for this. We didn't want to put agents software on every single computer that we wanted to scan, and we did not want to pay that much money for that as well. So if you haven't read all of the 754-page NESIS manual on page 714, the NESIS credential check is there. It just needs Active Directory setup, and we are good to go. And the second one is the Nmap vulnerability scan. Works especially well for Linux systems. We don't need we don't need to pay for it. It's open source, and a lot of hackers already use that, so we might as well see what they see. So what do we do? This is mostly the setup for Nessus. We essentially bring in GPO in. We open firewall holes and through a GPO. We ensure the needed services are enabled via script. This is all 50 pages from 740 to the end. And this makes it very easy and consistent to import into district systems and domains. We can import it from one district, put it into another, and we have the same consistency across. What we do after is cleanup. We try and practice leave no trace in our member districts. We disable the scanner account. It usually has a lot of access after the scan. We try and revert GPO settings and disable all unneeded services. And the third one is we make sure that the systems are green and up and ready for use. Mostly we look at domain controllers. We want to make sure they're RPC, WMIs, replication is happening when we disable some of those critical services.
Well, and a good way to end, we thought, is, well, what's next? So that's all great. We found a way around it. Well, what are we going to do after that? Well, if you think this all sounds like Cybersecurity 101, we're assessing system settings according to cybersecurity standards and vulnerability scanning, well, you're right, it is. Our goal is to bring essential cybersecurity protections to all school districts because every school community, regardless of its size or location, needs them. It doesn't matter if you're 500 students or 10,000 or 100,000, every district needs these protections and they need to be effective. For our assessments, doing more, well, that means running more scans on more systems at more schools, sure. But more importantly, or even most important, it means more conversations with more people about what we can do to keep improving K12 cybersecurity together in coordination and cooperation with our member districts, but also right here today, talking with our colleagues in the same sector and in other sectors, bringing people together because this is like the theme of the conference this year, this is about securing our whole community. That's why we came up with coordination and cooperation. It's the only way that K12 can have information security. And I think we may even have 3 minutes for question and answers if we've timed this right. So if anyone had anything, please let us know.
What type of, or do you provide any support for remediation after the scan?
Correct.
Go back where they're just barely staying focused.
Absolutely, and it depends, of course, on the finding what remediation step is necessary. If it's something like, hey, you missed this one patch, usually that's something that is pretty easy to do. But if it's something like, hey, this server, you know, Microsoft stopped supporting that like 3.5 years ago, and it's kind of your main domain controller. We kind of need to take that out and get it replaced right away. And that's where that partnership between CTA and the member districts comes in. Because yeah, doing something like that, some districts could do it, but frequently not every district, and especially when the timing isn't good. Like say, you know, September when school starts, and they're very busy, but still, these are critical issues. So that's where that partnership really comes to play.
And I want to add, this is why we have an IT analyst and 2 engineers. And the 2 engineers will go in and create a plan with the districts, and go in and help the districts actively, remediate some of those.
And the truth is, of course, that, again, we say, well, this is gonna be many phases of assessment. Because there's going to be new vulnerabilities, there's going to be things that we know now that we didn't know then. When I started in IT, using domain administrator accounts for kind of, well, I've got to install some software on this computer. It was kind of commonly accepted practice, and now, of course, that's a very dangerous practice that enables lateral movement with that same administrator password bouncing around. So the ongoing process is kind of part of this. It's a project that has started, but we don't anticipate it ever having a real end point, because we think there'll always be something that we can add, something we can do better. And we just want to help districts get there. Oh,
Yeah, so my name's Austin, I'm an analyst for PGE, where I used to be a high school teacher for about 5 years. And although we're all familiar that about 60% of statistics are made up on the spot, I've heard around 80% of the attack vector or that we've seen is through social engineering and phishing.
Yep.
So I'm curious, do you have any resources? Because when I think about from a company standpoint, we often say the user is the weakest link. Now we're talking about not only a school with employees, but potentially students who may not be as security minded as the rest of us. So I'm curious if you've got any plans for supporting schools in that kind of way.
We do, and you're very correct. I think Google may have had that percentage, that 80% of attacks being through phishing. The easy, quick answer, and I say that even though it's not easy or quick to enable, but it's the easy, quick answer, is multi-factor authentication for adult accounts. That combined with a regular training, even if it's a very short period, to say, hey, let's take a look at a potential phishing message and see how did we know this is suspicious? All of that is helpful for the adult side of the equation. For students, in some cases, districts use technical means to block external emails for certain grades. It varies quite a bit, but think generally elementary school age kids. Sometimes they can email each other or they can email their teacher, but nothing else. They can't get anything external. In some cases, it's trying to limit students' access to systems to, let's call them walled gardens, special systems that are designed for K12 that keep the kids within it, as opposed to the greater internet. But in the end, it is a real risk, and part of our mission as educators, this team doesn't really have direct interface with students, but we do encourage our districts to consider making cybersecurity a part of their regular curriculum at an age-appropriate level, and something that will be built upon over multiple years. Because, yeah, MFA has problems in a student environment. Some schools don't allow kids to have, for example, cell phones with them to use as such a device. And it's also a little bit of an issue for younger kids that just, they're doing well if they can remember their password. So there are systems called Clever that tries to use QR codes, say on a badge, to be that, I hesitate to call it a second factor, maybe an additional factor for login. Again, almost like a training, like getting them used to the idea of, okay, how do I sign into a system? Well, I give my username, I give my password, and then there's this other thing. Is it a perfect answer? No, absolutely not. We also do a lot of work trying to improve to the degree that we can, specifically with email. Settings like DKIM, SPF, and what have you, DEMO, to try to reduce the influx. Unfortunately, it works fairly well until some attacker out there comes with a way to get past it. Some systems, you kind of wish Google would get a little smarter to realize that it says it's from the same person, even though Google knows it's not from that person because it didn't go through their email server. But some settings can help ameliorate some of that influx.
And education, right? So we're trying to get we just for Northwest Regional and MESD, we have teachers as well. And we actually now have education education as a part of, the bullying and, cyberbullying, and now we have cybersecurity as well, to also help with, help teachers figure out what is good in everyone's in terms of
Oh, do you have time tonight?
I was just gonna say that the cyber board has some really great training lessons here around cybersecurity. And they're important, and there's a lot more that comes along with it.
There are a few good organic common sense media is another one, and blanking on the program that I know that's like, I keep saying, there it is.
We have our K-12 students read all of the NIST